The notorious bounty hunter Caleb Holt finally has the Bandit Queen in his sights. But the reality of his prey is nothing like the wanted posters promised. The dust of the Scarlet Canyon tasted of iron and regret. Caleb Holt wiped a bandana across his cracked lips, his eyes fixed on the scene below through his brass spyglass. The stagecoach lay on its side like a dead beetle, one wheel still spinning lazily. This was her work. Clean, efficient, and brutal. Anya the Vixen Petrova. The name was a whisper of fear and a shout of legend across the territory. The wanted posters depicted a harpy with wild black hair and a knife-like smile, worth $5,000, alive or dead. They said she'd cut a man's throat for looking at her wrong, that her gang, the Shadow Riders, were ghosts who bled railroad magnates dry. Caleb saw the reality now. The gang was a ragtag group of 6, mostly young men who looked like they'd been on the wrong end of a drought year. And Anya? She was nothing like the poster. She stood tall in a man's leather vest and worn trousers, her dark hair braided tightly in a crown around her head. She wasn't shouting or brandishing her guns. She was directing her people with sharp, efficient gestures. Her voice, though too distant to hear the words, carried a tone of command that brooked no argument. She was professional. This was Caleb's moment. He had tracked her for 3 months, across 2 territories. He had memorized the patterns of her heists, the way she favored hitting payroll shipments for the Great Western and Continental Railroad. The company's owner, Silas Drummond, had personally added a $2,000 bonus for her capture. This bounty would set Caleb up for years. He could disappear, buy a small ranch, and stop the relentless chase. He eased the heavy custom-made buntline special from its holster. The plan was simple: a shot to wound her horse, create chaos, pick off her guards, and take her while she was down. The law was the law. His code was simple: find the name on the poster, bring them in. He didn't ask why. The why was a luxury that got men killed. He took a breath, the dry air scraping his lungs. He centered his sights on the flank of her sturdy paint horse. His finger began to take up the trigger's slack. And then he saw it. The strongbox was pried open, but no one was grabbing the sacks of coins inside. Instead, 2 of Anya's riders were helping people out of the stagecoach. Not passengers. 3 young women, their faces pale with terror, their dresses simple and worn. They huddled together, clutching small, pathetic bundles of belongings. A cold knot tightened in Caleb's gut. This was wrong. Stagecoaches carried money, mail, and the occasional wealthy passenger. Not these frightened girls who looked like they'd come straight off a poor farm. Anya walked over to them. I expected her to threaten them, to take whatever pitiful valuables they had. Instead, she knelt, her posture softening. She offered one of them a canteen. The girl flinched back, but Anya spoke, her voice now a low carrying murmur in the canyon's stillness. It's all right. You're safe now. No one is going to hurt you. No one is going to Fort Baker. Fort Baker. The name was a blight on the territory. A mining town run by a man named Briggs, known for his indentured servants, a polite term for slaves he worked to death in his silver mine. The law turned a blind eye. Briggs was rich, and the women were usually orphans, debtors, or mail-order brides with no one to miss them. Caleb's aim wavered. The buntline's barrel dipped. He was a hunter, not a judge, but he was also a man. And the scene below wasn't a robbery, it was a rescue. His moment of hesitation cost him. One of the young women, in her frantic state, pointed directly at his position on the ridge. Shouts erupted. Anya's head snapped up, her eyes, even from this distance, seeming to lock directly onto his. They were the color of glacier ice, sharp and impossibly clear. She didn't panic. She shoved the women towards the cover of the rocks, barking an order. Her gang scattered, drawing their weapons. A shot rang out, kicking up dirt near Caleb's head. The spell was broken. Cursing, Caleb abandoned stealth. He spurred his horse, a massive bay gelding named Titan, down the steep slope into the canyon. Gunfire became a chaotic symphony. He saw one of Anya's riders go down, clutching his shoulder. Another shot splintered the wood of the overturned coach. He wasn't aiming to kill. He fired warning shots, trying to pin them down. His focus was still Anya. He saw her, a pistol in each hand, laying down covering fire for the fleeing women. She was fearless, a whirlwind of controlled violence. He cut her off, Titan shouldering her smaller horse aside. She stumbled but kept her feet, spinning to face him, both pistols aimed at his chest. They stood 10 paces apart, the air thick with gun smoke and tension. "Caleb Holt," she said, her voice steady, devoid of fear. She knew his name. Of course she did. The famous bounty hunter, here to collect Drummond's blood money. The poster says wanted for robbery and murder. It doesn't say anything about playing savior. The poster lies, just like the man who paid for it. Her eyes flickered towards where the women had disappeared. Those girls were being shipped to Briggs. You know what happens to them there? A short, miserable life. Not my business. My business is the law. Your business is the highest bidder, she spat, her composure cracking for a second to reveal a furnace of fury. And Silas Drummond bids high. He and Briggs are partners, Holt. The railroad needs the silver, and Briggs needs the supplies. I'm cutting into their profit. Caleb's world, so neatly ordered by the words on a wanted poster, was tilting on its axis. He saw the truth in her eyes, in the desperate scene around him. The Bandit Queen was a revolutionary. The victims were monsters. He had her. He could end it now. One shot. $7,000. A clean conscience. Had never been part of the deal. But his finger froze on the trigger. He looked at this woman, not as a bounty, but as a person. He saw the sweat and dirt on her face, the defiant set of her jaw, the absolute moral certainty in her glacial eyes. "Drop the guns, Petrova," he commanded, but the words sounded hollow, even to him. "Or what? You'll shoot me." She gave a bitter, tired laugh. "Go ahead, Holt. Add my soul to your collection. But know that you're not bringing in a monster today. You're working for one." The buntline special felt impossibly heavy in his hand. The canyon was silent, waiting for his decision.
In a shocking turn, the bounty hunter lets the Bandit Queen go, but their fates are now irrevocably intertwined, forcing them into a tense and dangerous partnership. The standoff stretched, seconds feeling like hours. Caleb's mind raced, weighing a lifetime of cold pragmatism against a single hot spark of conscience. He saw the girls' terrified faces. He heard the name Fort Baker. He saw the fire in Anya Petrova's eyes, a fire that spoke of a truth his wanted posters had carefully edited out. With a slow, deliberate motion, he lowered his buntline and slid it back into its holster. The sound of the hammer being eased down was deafening. Anya didn't lower her pistols. Her gaze was one of pure, unadulterated shock. "What is this? A trick?" "No trick," Caleb said, his voice rough. "Get your wounded man. Take the girls and go." "Why?" The question was a blade. "Because I'm not a hired gun for Silas Drummond. I lied. even though that's exactly what he had been hours before. And Briggs is a snake. That part, at least, was true. He turned his back on her, a move that went against every instinct he possessed. He heard her sharp intake of breath. It was the ultimate show of trust or stupidity. He walked to Titan, pretending to check his cinch, his every nerve screaming, waiting for a bullet. It never came. After a long moment, he heard her bark orders. "Jesse's hit! Get him on his horse! Maria, get the girls moving north, towards the creek! Now!" He risked the glance back. She was holstering one pistol, using the other to cover her people as they scrambled. Her eyes met his again, the suspicion still there, but now mixed with a dawning, bewildered curiosity. They moved with the efficiency of people used to fleeing. Within minutes, the stagecoach was abandoned, the strong box of coins left untouched in the dirt. The bounty, the reason he was here, was meaningless now. As Anya mounted her paint, she looked at him one last time. "They'll send others, Holt. Drummond won't stop." "I know." "Then you've just made yourself a target." She spurred her horse and disappeared into the maze of canyon rocks, leaving Caleb alone with the wreckage and his crumbling principles. He didn't return to town. He knew what awaited him there: questions, suspicion, and Drummond's fury. He became a ghost, camping high in the ridges, watching, thinking. He'd crossed a line, and there was no going back. The clarity of his old life was gone, replaced by annoying confusion. 2 days later, he found her. Or rather, she found him. He was boiling coffee over a small, smokeless fire when a rock clattered down the slope behind him. He turned slowly, hand on his gun, to see Anya standing at the edge of his camp. She was alone. "You're surprisingly easy to track for a famous manhunter," she said, her tone dry. "I wasn't hiding," Caleb replied, though he had been. "Coffee?" She nodded, warily entering the circle of firelight. She accepted the tin cup he offered her, her fingers brushing his. She studied him as she drank. "I checked on the girls. They're safe. In a settlement that doesn't ask questions." She paused. "I owe you thanks." "You don't." "I do. And I have a proposition." Caleb laughed, a short, harsh sound. "You've got gall, lady. A proposition?" "We're hitting a Drummond payroll train in 4 days," she said, her voice dropping, all business. "It's carrying the quarterly wages for the mining operations at Fort Baker. If we get it, Briggs's operation grinds to a halt for months. It will buy us time to get more people out." "We?" Caleb stared at her. "You expect me to join your crusade?" "I expect you to finish what you started," she fired back. "You saw an injustice, and you didn't pull the trigger. That's a start, but it's not enough. You have skills, Holt. You know how they think, how they track, how they operate. We're surviving. With you, we could actually win." It was madness. It was treason to the world he'd always known. But the emptiness he had felt since letting her go was suddenly filled with a terrifying, thrilling purpose. He had spent his life closing cages. The idea of helping someone break them open was dangerously seductive. "What's in it for me?" he asked, falling back on the language he understood. "A clean soul doesn't come cheap," she said, with a ghost of a smile. "But besides that, all the loot you can carry." He was silent for a long time, staring into the fire. He thought of the $7,000 he'd walked away from. He thought of Silas Drummond's smug face. He thought of the 3 girls, safe in a new home because of this beast. "I'm not doing it for the money," he said finally, surprising himself. Anya's smile widened, a real one this time, that transformed her stern face into something striking and beautiful. I know. And so, Caleb Holt, the man who brought in outlaws, became an outlaw. The planning began that night. He learned her gang's names, their skills, their limitations. He pointed out the flaws in her plan for the train, the placement of guards, the escape route. He was a professional, and he applied his cold, ruthless logic to her cause. The night before the train job, they sat on a ledge overlooking the vast, sleeping plains. The air was cold, the stars, a brilliant spray of dust above them. "My sister," Anya said softly, breaking the silence. "Drummond's railroad took our family's farm. She went to the capital to petition for fair compensation. She never came back. We found out later she'd been sold to Briggs to settle a transportation fee. She lasted 6 months in his mine." "I'm sorry," Caleb said, the words inadequate. "Don't be sorry," she said, her voice hardening. "Be effective." The next day, as they lay in ambush beside the train tracks, the air humming with the approaching locomotive's vibration, Caleb checked his guns. He wasn't Caleb Holt, bounty hunter, anymore. He was a part of her legend, and as he looked at Anya, who gave him a sharp, confident nod, he knew he had made the only choice he could live with. The train rounded the bend, its smokestack belching black smoke, its cargo of misery and money barreling towards them. The hook was set. The real fight was just beginning.
Their successful train heist draws the full, brutal wrath of the railroad, forcing Caleb and Anya into a final, desperate showdown, where they must defend their newfound sanctuary and the lives they've saved. The train heist was a masterpiece of controlled chaos. Using Caleb's knowledge of Pinkerton patrol schedules and Anya's fearless leadership, they separated the payroll car, derailed it on a gentle curve, and secured the strong boxes with minimal bloodshed. They left the guards tied up, unharmed, with a message. "This is for Ilara Petrova." The victory was short-lived. Silas Drummond's response was swift and brutal. He didn't send more bounty hunters. He sent a private army. 50 hired guns, led by a vicious ex-Confederate major named Rourke, were given a simple order: wipe the Shadow Riders from the map. No prisoners, no questions. Caleb and Anya's new alliance was forged in the fire of a running battle. They led their people, and the 24 rescued women and children they now sheltered high into the unforgiving Sawtooth Mountains, to a place Anya called Sanctuary, a hidden valley with a single defensible entrance. It was here, surrounded by towering pines and the people they protected, that the last of Caleb's old shell cracked away. He was no longer an outsider. He was their strategist, their protector. He taught them how to set perimeter traps, how to shoot with cold precision instead of hot anger. And he watched Anya, not just as a leader, but as a woman. He saw the way she comforted a crying child, the weight of responsibility in her shoulders, the unexpected softness in her touch when she tended to a wounded fighter. One evening, as they stood watch on a high ridge, looking down at the tiny, vulnerable community of lanterns below, she spoke. "I never asked for this," she said, her voice quiet. "I just wanted my sister back. Then I found out how many others were lost. I couldn't stop." "You shouldn't have to," Caleb replied. He looked at her, her profile silhouetted against the twilight. "This is the only right thing I've done in a long time." She turned to him. "What changed your mind, Holt? In the canyon that day?" He was silent for a moment, searching for the words. "The posters, they make things simple. A name, a face, a price. They don't show the why. When I saw the why, I couldn't unsee it. I looked at you, and I didn't see a beast. I saw... He trailed off, the admission feeling too raw. "What?" she whispered, her gaze intense. "I saw... a leader," he said, pulling back from the brink. "Someone worth following." The moment was shattered by a distant crack, followed by the whine of a ricochet off the rock face beside them. A split second later, the thunderous report of a high-powered rifle echoed through the valley. Rourke had found them. "To the barricades!" Anya roared, her voice instantly shifting from introspection to command. The assault was relentless. Rourke's men charged the narrow pass, and the valley erupted in a storm of gunfire. Caleb's traps took a heavy toll, but the attackers kept coming, driven by Drummond's money and Rourke's cruelty. The air grew thick with smoke and the screams of the wounded. Caleb fought with a cold fury he'd never known. This wasn't for a bounty. This was for a home. He saw one of Anya's young riders, the one named Jessie, take a bullet in the leg. He saw a mother pull her children inside a cabin, her face a mask of terror. He and Anya fought side by side, a seamless, deadly dance. He would lay down suppressing fire with his buntline, while she picked off targets with her rifle. They moved with an unspoken understanding, each anticipating the other's needs. But they were outnumbered and outgunned. Their ammunition was running low. The barricade was splintering under the onslaught. "They're flanking us on the left," Anya shouted, reloading her rifle with practiced speed. "We can't hold." Caleb saw it too. The battle was lost. The only path left was a desperate last stand to buy time for the others to flee into the higher, more treacherous mountains. Then his hunter's eyes saw the key. Major Rourke, arrogant and confident, had moved up to direct the final assault. He stood just within range, a perfect target, believing himself safe behind his lines. "Anya," Caleb said, his voice calm amidst the chaos. "The ridge, 200 yards, the man with the red scarf." She followed his gaze, her eyes narrowing. She understood. She raised her rifle, but a volley of gunfire forced her back down. "I can't get a clear shot." "You don't have to." Caleb's mind was clear, the path forward as simple as an equation. He was the bait. "On my mark, give me everything you've got. Covering fire." Before she could argue, he broke from cover, sprinting at a crouch towards a more exposed position. He drew every enemy gun towards himself. Bullets kicked up dirt at his heels. He heard Anya scream his name, but her voice was followed by the relentless crack of her rifle as she laid down a storm of fire, forcing the attackers to keep their heads down. Caleb slid behind a fallen log, his heart hammering against his ribs. He had a clear line of sight. Major Rourke, arrogant and confident, drew his own pistol, a cruel smile on his face. They fired at the same time. Caleb felt a searing heat tear across his ribs, but his shot was true. The heavy, .45 caliber round from the buntline struck Rourke square in the chest. The major staggered, his look of triumph turning to one of profound surprise, before he crumpled to the ground. The effect was instantaneous. The hired guns, their leader dead, and their paymaster gone, lost their nerve. The ferocious assault faltered, then broke. Men began to fall back, then turn and run, disappearing back down the pass. Silence descended, broken only by the moans of the wounded and the crackle of dying fires. Caleb slumped against the log, his hand pressed to his bleeding side. It was a flesh wound, painful but not mortal. He looked up to see Anya running towards him, her face a canvas of fear and relief. She dropped to her knees beside him, her hands frantically checking his wound. "You idiot! You reckless, stupid idiot!" "It worked!" he grunted, a pained smile touching his lips.
Her eyes, those clear glacier pools, searched his face. The fear in them wasn't for the battle or for their cause. It was for him. Slowly, she leaned forward and kissed him. It was not a gentle kiss. It was a desperate, thankful, life-affirming clash of lips tasting of gunpowder and tears. When they parted, the last of the Bandit Queen and the bounty hunter fell away, leaving only Anya and Caleb. "The law will still be after us," he said, his forehead resting against hers. "We're not outlaws, Caleb. We're the new law, the one they forgot to write." As the sun rose over the Sawtooth Mountains, it illuminated not a scene of defeat, but a hard-won victory. They had paid for their freedom in blood and bullets, but they had earned it. Together, they had built something more valuable than any bounty, a sanctuary, a purpose, and a love as wild and untamed as the land they had chosen to defend.